G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. So today, I'm going to be going over my tips for the prelim finals of this 2024 finals series. It was a crazy weekend with the semi-finals, so we'll go over those. But feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do go to enjoy today's video. And as always, let's start off with how it went last week. Okay, so my tips from the semi-finals. 0 out of 2. Yes, what can I say? I'm just an expert. But in all seriousness, these were hard games to predict, in all honesty, and both the favourites didn't end up losing, so there you go. But I did give reasons on the opposition teams on winning this game. I felt if Port Adelaide were able to bring relentless pressure, like they did against the Hawks, I'd give them a chance, and that's exactly what they did. I thought this was one of the games of the year, if not the game of the year. Shame the controversy of the 𝐬𝐿𝐴 𝐿𝐴 stuff post-game soured it all out. But Port were fantastic on being able to take away Hawthorn's game. They gave them no space when they were able to move the ball. And they got it done for the ball. So it was, a quality win for them. So they will take on the Swans. And what an unbelievable game this was in the end. We all thought the Giants are home and hosed. Brisbane looked gone halfway through the third. But then they kicked 4 in a row in the third, late in the third quarter. And then they kicked, I think, the last 5 or 6 goals of the game. And it was just a plain and simple GWS choke. They've led for 94% in both games combined. And they've lost both games. They've played really good for 3 quarters. And they're out in straight sets. It just baffles me on how good this GWS side is that they're not playing at least in a prelim final. But the Lions, they really got their mojo going when they were able to turn the tables. And it's deservedly, they do go through to a prelim final to face the Cats. Okay, a quick look now at my tipping competition leaderboard update. So there's only 2 games. So as expected, there were a lot of people that did get themselves a 2 out of 2, so on screens right now. Congrats if you are one of those. And as for who is leading my competition still is 𝐲𝐻𝐿𝐴 𝐿𝐴, and he is leading with a score of 169. So let's now begin with the prelim final tips, and I want to start off by saying I would not be surprised on any outcome possible with these 2 games. You don't know what you're going to expect. You could see the Swans absolutely shit the bed. You could see Port Adelaide do the same too. We could see a repeat of 2022 where the Cats absolutely pump the Lions, or we could see Brisbane really shock the comp with a huge win here. So I could really see anything happening with these 2 games. They're hard to predict, but let's start off Friday night. The Swannies taking on Port Adelaide. Now, as a big Swan supporter myself, unfortunately can't make the game as I've just got a few commitments and got a bit of work on. So yeah, going to be streaming the game, so stay tuned obviously on the channel. It's going to be a big stream, of course, but really keen for this match. Well, I think let's start off by addressing what a lot of people have been saying, and yes, it is true, the Swans have not beaten Port Adelaide since 2016, and I've been always vocal about this whenever the Swans play Port Adelaide. They just have the wood over them, the pair. They seem to match up against the Swans really well. They seem to get a hold of their midfield and their contested stuff, and just their pressure is always probably a big notice on when Port Adelaide play the Swans. I remember even last year, in last year's game, their pressure was outstanding, and yeah, they just totally brained the Swans in contested footy, and it was a 112-point win their way. But a lot has changed since then, around, 2 months ago now. The Swans had a completely almost different team. They had no Rampy. I don't think they had Papley McInerney. They had Rowbottom fresh off an injury. They had Francis and Laddams playing. So it's a lot more of a different squad they have now. And that was their last loss up until this game here. And that was when the Swans weren't playing the greatest brand of footy. They were horrendously out of form. And they've seemed to pick up quite a bit of their mojo. Their ball movement and their turnover game is back. And especially with what we did witness in the first qualifying final between themselves and the Giants. So gain a lot of confidence off a win like that heading into a prelim final. Also a week off, which could be pretty advantageous given Port Adelaide's past 2 games has probably put a bit of fatigue on those bodies, but I'm not expecting them to be slow here. They're really going to come out and give this a red hot crack. It was probably one of Port Adelaide's best wins in quite some time, and they've never been great in knockout finals. I think it was 𝐬𝐿𝐴 𝐿𝐴's first knockout final win in over a decade, I was reading. And I thought their game plan against Hawthorn was outstanding. It was the reason why they ended up winning the game. From minute 1, their pressure was brutal. Did not give the Hawks any time and space to move the footy or change angles or use the width of the ground. And even though a lot of their entries and their ball movement was pretty sloppy, they were able to find ways to get goals out the back or off the turnover, getting a lot of forward half intercepts too. And what we've seen this year when the Swans have struggled, it's when teams are able to take away their game from them. So look at the Bulldogs back at the SCG, they're able to take away the corridor. A few sides, when they're able to take away the Swans' ball movement and not give them space, they seem to struggle under a bit of pressure, the Swannies. So if Port Adelaide bring that manic pressure, not allow them the corridor, that's definitely going to be key should they get up here. At the time of recording this, 87% have tipped the Swans. I think this is going to be, honestly, a 50-50 game. Callum Mills is going to be out for the Swans with a hamstring problem. That probably hurts them a bit with defensive structure. I felt he was going to be a really important player in this finals campaign. I know he wasn't great in the last game against the Giants, but he had a bit of gastro, I think, the night before, so that probably explained how ordinary he did look. But still a bit of an out. Ever since the win against the Dons, he's been pretty solid back there as a full-time defender. So they'll hurt him, I think, with his absence. My assumption is maybe Robbie Fox comes in because he shows a bit of versatility, and then maybe someone like Braden Campbell stays the sub. Or if it's not Robbie Fox, Braden Campbell pushes into the 22, and maybe Taylor Adams comes in as the sub. Port Adelaide, they will be here without Todd Marshall, so the big question is, are they going to go with a bit more of a small forward line to match Swans' defence, or will they bring in Charlie Dixon to stretch the Swannies' smaller defence? Charlie Dixon, I remember, had a pretty good night out against the Swannies last game all those weeks ago, and he can provide some good flexibility as a backup ruck. I remember in last year's game against the Swans, he was really good late when he was a backup ruck. So maybe Dixon does come back in. What gives me confidence about the Swans heading this game is, even though they haven't started games well, they just second halves have been the difference this year. When sides haven't really been able to put the foot down and put them away with very good scoreboard pressure, they've been able to, within a period of 10 minutes or maybe a quarter, like against GWS last time out, just really get their game going, take the game on, really execute their high turnover game and hit the scoreboard well through their stars. And with a big home crowd, with the week's rest too, it's certainly a lot of advantages pointing to them. Again, if Port Adelaide are able to do what they did against the Hawks, take away some of the Swans' ball movement, really pressure them in the forward half. Remember, Port Adelaide love to push the forwards up the ground and generate a lot of inside 50s. A bit more of a compact ground, the SCG. Some of those things really do fall into their favour. They've got to be a lot more cleaner with their ball skills though. When watching them last week against the Hawks, they just had a lot of high bombs and a lot of shallow entries. I don't feel like you can be doing that against the Swans because you have players back there like Nick Blakey and even Lewis Milligan-McCann can really show some attack off the counter. But you know, the Swans from the back half are very dangerous, and if you have some poor use inside 50, they're just going to absolutely carve you up. Port Adelaide do struggle with that a little bit. If they can't defend ball movement, they really do get well exposed. So it's a critical importance for the Swans. Really don't go into your shells and bring out that strong ball movement, especially through the corridor. Midfield battle's definitely going to be a big one too. Jason Horne-Francis a bit banged up. Can he have another huge game? I thought Rosie was pretty solid last week, and so is Zach Butters under that injury cloud, so he's just got to keep on attacking contests. Will they put a bit of attention on 𝐼𝙗𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐞? I know that James Jordan probably does go into Zach Butters here. Tough game to tip, it really is. The strengths of both sides make you think, okay, well this side can win, but at the same time maybe this side could win. Swans with a week off, home field advantage, gives them the edge, which is fair enough, and I still think the Swans' best is the best in the competition. This one will be a scrap, I reckon, through the first half, but what gives me trust about the Swans is their second half has been the difference this year, and just that final quarter against GWS does give me a bit of hope with this game, knowing that if they are under the pump with Port Adelaide, I just feel like a big final quarter could be the difference through some of their stars, and I just on paper feel like the Swans got a bit more class as well. So going to be going with the Swans here. This one will be close, but I'm just feeling a big final quarter and a big second half, and really catch out Port Adelaide with some strong ball movement here. The ground level game is going to be a big one, I feel too, but they'll really get the ball rolling, I think, with their ball movement, the Swannies, and knock off the pair in a pretty cagey affair. We'll go the Swans to move to a grand final and win this one by 12 points. We now move on to the next preliminary final, and it is the 2022 preliminary final rematch. The Cats taking on the Lions at the MCG. This one at 5:15 p.m, so should Brisbane win, they'll get a bit of time to go home, back home to Brisbane on the very same night, so it does make sense there. But yeah, really interesting matchup this. Right off the bat, this is Brisbane's time to finally get one over the Cats, because I've read since 2004 Brisbane have yet to beat the Cats since that year away from the Gabba. And looking at both teams as well, Brisbane grand finalists last year, the Cats probably not as good as they were 2 years ago. This just has to be Brisbane's opportunity to finally get that win on the MCG in a big final move to a grand final here. But deservedly, while the Cats are favourites, as not only is it a home field advantage for them, they're just a well-coached side. And you're a lot more confident on a team like Geelong to get it done in a finals game. Ever since 2022, when they've really adopted just a finals-like brand of just really strong ground level game and strong contested stuff, the Cats are actually the number one ground level team in the competition, I think just ahead of Hawthorn. And look what they did to Port Adelaide. They were so aggressive at ground level. I think Dangerfield is the big difference in their midfield. He really gets the other midfielders on his back. He just charges through contests, gets it out of congestion, and he gets plenty of clearances himself. So the midfield battle is going to be a really big one here. I think if Brisbane are able to match it or even win plenty of clearance themselves, not allow the Cats to win those ground level contests as much as they do, that could be the difference for Brisbane winning this game. But quite simply, the Cats are one of the best coached teams in the competition, and I think especially against a side like Brisbane where they love to take a game on, that probably falls into the Cats' hands, because if they want to surge the footy forward, they're just really well set up behind the ball. They were ranked the number one team in the competition this year when they don't have the ball, the Cats. So for Brisbane, got to be strong off the clearance, but also really methodical with their ball movement. I feel they're a really good uncontested side, the Lions, and they can pick apart and move up the ground really well. And when they've won at the MCG the past few times when they've been able to win, they've had really, from the top of my head, they've had really high uncontested possessions. So I think that's going to be an important area for them, really get their uncontested game going. It's just such a strange game to look upon last week, the Lions, because there were just so many of those key players that were poor for three quarters. I mean, Cam Rudd had like 2 touches and Zach Bailey had 3 touches at half time. They could not get into the game. Thought 𝐼𝐴 was brilliant though. He had game high score involvements at halftime. He was great for the whole of it, and so was Will Ashcroft. He's had 2 solid finals now, and I think his composure whilst Neil is getting tagged is really important for Brisbane, because he can show his composure through traffic, hit the right hand pass. There's just talent everywhere you look with this Brisbane side. It's just, can they get it done on the MCG against a well-drilled side of the Cats? On paper, you definitely agree. I don't think the Cats are as good as they were 2 years ago. But let's remember, with that 84-point qualifying final win where they just absolutely outdid the pair through strong ball movement and really good ground level stuff, they will be getting back in Tom Stewart. They were without Tom Stewart, let's remember, in the first week of finals. So does he go on the ball? Will he float behind the footy? He probably starts in the midfield, but just his ability to float behind the ball, it could definitely give Chris Fagan some headaches when the Lions go inside 50. And that has been a big issue for Brisbane. Their conversion inside 50 and their accuracy. They kicked 4 goals 12, 4 goals 10 I think it was at half time against the Giants, and then they kicked 11 goals 5, 11 goals 4 after that period. So they've really got to hit the scoreboard. Their best is some of the best in the comp. They can really put on a big score if they're accurate. For 3.5 quarters against the Giants, their ball movement was shocking. They can't go into their shells again and go into old bad habits of just high bombing inside 50. Got to hit targets, lace out. That's where Brisbane are really good, when they can move the footy with haste but hit it well inside 50. Big question for the Cats is who is going to tag 𝐼𝐴 Neale? Will it be a bit more of a team job, or will someone like Tom Atkins, who is an accountable midfielder, run with him, or Jack Bowes or Tanner Bruin they've been able to tag in the past? Speaking of Neale, he isn't actually playing 100%. He's had a bit of a foot problem the past few weeks and didn't train on Monday from what I did hear too. So he's going to be fine for the prelim final, but 𝐼𝐴 Neale not absolutely at his peak. Could be a bit of an influence for this game. So it just can't be Neale and bust. As I said before, Will Ashcroft, he's been excellent. Probably won't get too much attention given it's Neale and McCluggage, etc. and Dunkley too. So I feel like he could really break open this final. But also McCluggage, he was excellent with his ball use in that 4th quarter. He's really got to get going. And it's pretty straightforward, but it has to be said, they just can't afford to have their stars forward of the ball have just completely and utterly quiet quarters or patches of this game. Because against the Cats, who are a very strong turnover side, especially at the MCG, and really are well set up, they're just going to absolutely carve you. So the Lions can't be playing just good 1.5 quarters here. They need to be strong for at least 3.5 quarters. For sure, if the Lions bring their best, it's certainly good enough to knock off a side like Geelong here, but what just gives me the edge for the Cats is just how well drilled they are of a side, and it gives me a bit more confidence in a big finals game like this, I feel. They might not have as many star factor plays as the Lions, even though they've got some quality players, don't get me wrong. They just work so well as a team. And their small forwards is definitely what could be the difference for this game as well. The Lions have struggled with a bit with defensive ball movement. Look what happened in the first half against GWS. They were actually getting killed out of stoppage and also with ball movement end to end. And I just think those smalls like Stengel and Brad Close and Sean Manor, he was outstanding too in the first week of finals, could be that difference to catch the Lions out the back. Alongside that, Brisbane's accuracy in their cohesion inside 50 has hurt them, and I just think the Cats defenders are going to be well structured enough to defend that. So, as I've said, I think Brisbane's best, and I'd love to see if they can win this game here, but the Cats, for me, are hard to go against, so I'm going to be going with Geelong here, and it's going to be a 2022 grand final rematch, I reckon. So the Cats move to the grand final. Close one, I feel, but the Cats just edge for me against the Lions. So we'll go Geelong here by 16 points. So overall, now my tips for the prelim finals, and geez, these are two hard games to tip, and this season has been so difficult to tip as well. I mean, I was 0-2 last week. You just never know. You can never be too confident on tips because you just do not know what this season will throw at you in the future. So, look, Port and Brisbane could win. I'd love to see Port and Brisbane Grand Final 2004 Grand Final rematch. That'd be sweet. But yeah, they're my tips for the two prelim finals and just my thoughts as well. I like to go a bit in depth given there's only two games. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Always love to hear your people's opinions. And that's pretty much it from me, everybody. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy. Feel free to, stay tuned on the channel. And we're going to be streaming both these games. Going to be two beauties, let's hope. And thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.